Today, I'm joined by Brooke Wheeler. She's a talent acquisition leader and fractional talent advisor who helps high-growth companies build smarter, faster, more inclusive hiring strategies.
I wish I would have had that tool when I was doing my high-growth hiring and faster hiring, and just being able to learn real-life stories of how people are using the tools, using innovation, being just a little bit different in how they think about recruiting and TA.
You've built TA inside big organizations and now run a fractional practice. What do you think the biggest difference between internal TA and fractional advisor is in how you make a fast impact or implement technology?
I think just being able to show them the total picture of what good TA looks like and being able to do that really quickly. I don't know. It's a lot, but it's fun.
Hey, RecOps friends, are you still losing hours every week to interview scheduling chaos? What if you could eliminate the back and forth, cut scheduling time by 90%, and actually get those recruiter hours back on the hiring desk where they belong? That's exactly why teams are turning to Rooster, the native interview scheduling platform built inside Workday Recruiting that finally makes interview logistics fast, seamless, and predictable. With Rooster, you connect directly to your Workday system. No extra tools, no disconnected workflows, and instantly let candidates self-schedule with one-click booking links. It handles time zone and language differences automatically, sends branded confirmations and reminders via SMS, email, or WhatsApp, and keeps interviewers, coordinators, and candidates in sync without constant manual follow-ups. And it's not just about speed. Rooster helps you see the true cost of scheduling inefficiencies with its TAS metric, so ops teams can track and improve the parts of the process that slow you down the most. Whether your team hires locally, globally, or somewhere in between, Rooster cuts errors, saves 10 plus recruiter hours per week, and creates a candidate experience that reflects the quality of your brand. If you're ready to stop chasing calendars and start hiring with confidence, visit rooster.us and schedule a demo today. Your recruiters will thank you. Now, on with the show. What's up, everybody? Today, I'm joined by Brooke Wheeler. She's a talent acquisition leader and fractional talent advisor who helps high-growth companies build smarter, faster, more inclusive hiring strategies. She's most recently served as VP of Talent Acquisition at Merchant E, where she helped scale the company by hiring and onboarding 500 plus full-time employees and building an in-house TA function that eliminated agency spend. She is a doer, my kind of recruiter. Brooke, welcome to the show.
I'm so glad to be here, Brandon. It's nice to meet you.
I know, this is great. Brooke, you are one of those folks that is always showing up for me online. So starting with a thank you, I feel like I always see a comment and engagement. And I think that's just like how you roll. Like you are liked in the industry, one of those folks that just spends a lot of time giving back.
I'm just giving back what people have given to me. And it is, you need hype people everywhere you go. And just someone saying, I see you, I'm with you. And I love to be that person because so many people give it to me.
It's so true. So true. There's so many folks in this industry, especially folks in Atlanta. I think of some of the folks in Atlanta that have made a huge impact in my life. I'm talking Brian Fink, Trent Cotton, true mentors, men that I feel like a sense of brotherhood to, who have helped me in my personal and professional lives. Huge shout out to the Atlanta recruiter community, which is home for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I, like so many people, I didn't truly understand what networking was until I was in need of a job. And I realized, you know what? I've been heads down doing work. I should probably get out and see what everyone else is doing. A little bit selfishly at first, someone had directed me to an HR, TA network, job seeker networking call. Larry Anderson happened to be on the call that day and we got connected and he was like, you should we're starting up the Atlanta recruiters community in person meetings again, you should come. And I showed up. I met Larry. I met Brian Fink. I met Trent. I met Anna Morgan, Carrie Caro, like all the people that you've named. And literally within a month, I had probably, I don't know the number, quadrupled the number of recruiters that I knew just through those introductions. Of course, Brian Fink, you get on a call with him and before you hang up, he literally has connected you with a dozen people. Oh, you need to know so-and-so, she's going to help you with your fractional business. You need to know. So it's just amazing everyone has a different talent, skill set, perspective on recruiting, but generosity is something they all have. And I wouldn't be here without that.
It's
and
so
then you
true.
go to RecFest and you meet you and all of the folks. So it just quadrupled again.
Yeah, I love how a lot of stuff comes back to RecFest USA being the central node for much of the community building that's gone on in the last 3-4 years. The first time you and I met was at RecFest, I think year one, right? In Nashville?
Maybe 2. I think
Okay.
I missed year one. It was year two. But yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's just when I think about what gets people to show up in the world of recruiting, recruiters, we don't have a lot of budgets for going to conference like other business groups. We almost view in the industry as going to a recruiting conference as like a reward. And then the reward for being able to go to a conference and spend 2 days listening to sessions, networking, focusing on professional development is that you're 2 days behind on your recs that are open when you went to Vegas for a
Right.
conference.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword. And I always encourage folks, spend a couple $1,000s a year going to conferences, investing in yourself. No one is going to look out for your career better than yourself.
Yeah.
And still, there's a lot of folks I say that to that don't show up. What do you think the value is in showing up to a conference, paying your own way, and just putting on for your people?
Right. Mine is always about meeting my online friends in real life, but also there's so much you can learn. Right now, especially because I haven't been sitting in-house for the duration, I don't have the beauty of someone paying for all of my tools. Like as a fractional recruiter and fractional TA, like I'm trying to build my own toolbox and it gets overwhelming. So when you go to a conference, although I know we talk about some are a little too vendor heavy, but we do get to learn this is the new thing. She was a leader in TA at FedEx, and I listened to her. I think she was talking about using Perplexity for some hiring. And it was just like, oh my God, I wish I would have had that tool when I was doing my high growth hiring and faster hiring, and just being able to learn real life stories of how people are using the tools, using innovation, being just a little bit different in how they think about recruiting and TA. That's it for me. I love that. And then, of course, being able to meet so many different people from all walks of life within this space.
Yeah, and honestly, I think sometimes it can be a little vendor heavy. It can be a little vendor heavy from the stage, but then I enjoy the big expo hall, the big teams. You can't turn the recruiter gene off. So when I walk through the expo hall and I see all of the vendors and I see my friends, the marketers, the founders that I know, I'm always interested to see who is the SDR, who's the AE, one of the folks in a t-shirt, who's really showing up in that moment for their company. I love assessing talent and I love seeing those outlier sales reps at some of these HR tech vendors come out, interact with us, and I'm consistently impressed by a handful of folks that I certainly have my eye on for people that I would recruit. I think at the end of the day, like being a recruiter at a recruiting conference, talking to recruiting vendors at an expo hall, whether it's selling stuff, like that is just every recruiter's walking around, seeing people who are really turning up in terms of their skill set. And I love sales hiring. I love engineering hiring as well. But there's just something about seeing young folks in sales get excited about our industry because I want to pass the torch to other recruiters, but also be a steward of what it means to be in the recruiting industry.
They can't serve us if we're not telling them what we need.
100%. And when you think about tools, it's all about having the right arrow in the quiver. You've built TA inside big organizations and now run a fractional practice. What do you think the biggest difference between internal TA and fractional advisor is in how you make a fast impact or implement technology?
And it's interesting because you feel like my immediate answer is you have embedded trust when or automatic trust when you're internal, but that's actually not true. You're constantly building trust. But what you have to do as a fractional TA advisor is just rapidly diagnose. So it's almost like triaging it a little bit because you've had sales meetings with the person that's brought you on. You have deliverables that you've spelled out in your statement of work. Then you show up and you're like, okay, I'm going to do A, B, and C. And then it's impossible to stay tunnel vision on A, B, and C because all of a sudden you're like, what about this? What about this? Like we know the full scope of TA and we know the whatever 8-10 steps that go into recruiting. And maybe there's some other things that could be the actual problem of why they are bringing you in for steps A, B, and C. So I think rapidly diagnosing, being able to have those conversations with, and not necessarily changing everything, but being able to make sure that you're helping them see the bigger picture other than just these things that they brought you in for. Because No one actually ever says our hiring is a hot mess. Everyone thinks they're doing a pretty good job. And not that we want to say that out loud to them, but I think it's being able to put it all together to say, okay, I'm going to put out these fires, but let's look holistically at what's happening here and how we can make, if we can change X, Y, and Z, you're going to see a bigger difference in A, B, and C than me just focusing on that. So I think just being able to show them the total picture of what good TA looks like, I think, and being able to do that really quickly with while you're trying to gain all of that trust is, I don't know, it's a lot, but it's fun.
Yeah, I love that. The different challenges, the pattern recognition, and ability to see around a corner for different companies at different sizes and stages is really fun. I think that's the silver lining in the whole fractional work. My experience going out on my own, working for multiple clients at a time, doing 10, 20 hours here and there. What I found when I was doing that was I might be doing work over here for one client that then accelerates my ability to operate for a different client from the learning that I had over here. And not in the obvious way of sharing candidates, but the way of thinking of I'm getting so many at-bats in real time, working with a variety of stakeholders, working with a variety of companies that I'm selling to. This is actually why I think early career agency recruiters have a good priming for the world of recruitment because they can move fast. They know how to sell different things. They get those at bats. What are your thoughts on the state of fractional TA and what are you learning?
Yeah. And I started my first 10 years was agency recruiting, bless you. Yeah, I cut my teeth 100% on everything that it takes to be a good recruiter. And I think that's why I was able to be successful when I did move into corporate because I used those skills immediately. And then now you transition into fractional and it really is being able to pivot pretty quickly. And now that I've done this perfectly, I'm sure there's plenty, I'm still learning on a daily basis on how I can improve the work and the product that I deliver to my clients. But like you said, just really being able to pivot, thinking about, okay, I know we've been recruiting on this path and that whole let's quit with the insanity and let's try something different and being able to bring all my expertise, just the experiences that I've seen at different levels and sizes of companies.
Yeah, it's fun. I think at the end of the day, recruiting is about getting to a handshake yes. At its core, it's one of the oldest professions. If I'm a caveman and you're a cave woman and we need to push a boulder up a hill, you or I might know a caveman or cave woman a couple caves over that we can see if they want to help us. That is recruiting. And I love this because we think about the art and science of recruiting all the time when we talk about vendors. And I am certainly excited about vendor diversification. The ATS market is poised to grow like 2 to 2.5x in the next 4 years, which is awesome because that means we'll have more diversification from vendors at the ATS level, but then all of the like feature, nice to have early stage startups that build in a way that those larger companies can't build as fast at the same time, or we see these startups build for an HCM. So I think the ATS and the HR tech and rec tech landscape is going to blow up. And I'm personally excited by that because it's really fun. It's really fun to talk to founders, see what they're building. You and I have been in the industry a while, see how we can be helpful. Much of the work I'm doing is just that, taking those briefings, taking those founder pitches, meeting them in the analyst briefing room at conferences, seeing what they're working on, offering up intros, being a steward of the industry, telling them whose party they have to go to and who they need to know in the industry. That's all the fun stuff. That's not like the work of recruiting or the work of the projects I'm working on today. So I'm excited for more folks to dip a toe in. Come on, the water's fine. Hiring is always going to be a problem to solve for. Yeah. And we see that in the cyclical trends. When we see some of the industry white papers or conference talks and keynotes, much of the stuff we talk about today has been visited in the past. So I'm excited for more folks coming into our space, getting curious. Since I mentioned conferences, there's a big one coming up that I'm excited about. Our friend Anna Morgan is running a conference called Evolve. Yeah. You're going to be there, right?
I'll be there. Will you be there?
No, I'm so sorry, Anna.
Yeah. Sorry.
I have to pass. I had Anna on the show. I have so many projects and balls in the air this winter, which I'm grateful for. Thank you. We work with great partners. We work with great clients. So I'm like booked, busy, and blessed. And
I
sometimes
love it.
you just can't make it to everything. But I will be in Atlanta for part of my road trip series that I'm doing this year, which I'm very excited about.
That's so fun. I saw that. You said that today on LinkedIn. We'll definitely have to pull you into the Atlanta recruiter community or whatever you come up with. Going back, I love watching what you're teaching us on ATS and what people are doing. I can't keep up. I try my best, but I love watching what you're doing. I'm excited for Evolve. Anna has put together such a lineup of just heavy hitters in the space, people who not only are going to teach us, they're going to help us get a little bit more confidence, know how to take care of ourselves, because I think TA and HR probably more than anything, we're there taking care of everyone else and we forget to take care of our own selves. Throughout all of this, they need more sauna in their lives. So I'm excited for that day.
Yeah. And what's cool about a conference like Evolve is it's small, it's micro, it's 200 folks in a room learning, connecting. Recruiting is all about relationships. And when I think about building relationships with candidates, I think about some of those companies that I've built that are like less than 500 people. You've done that too. And one of the things that we mentioned in your intro and that you've talked about is like how fractional TA leaders and recruiting leaders can eliminate agency spend. That's one of the biggest values that we can bring is, hey, how can we control the bleeding a little bit? Because there's a time and place for agency.
Right,
I've
100%.
started agencies. You came up in the agency world as well. So I respect it, but let's talk a little bit about there. Like, what is the value of eliminating agency spend, knowing that's the world you came from?
Yeah, I'll date myself, but I started in agency when we were literally faxing resumes to our clients, and that counted. Oh, I faxed it, so I own them. Like silliness.
Wow.
But let's go back to the actual work. And I am not anti-agency. Like I am very clear. I've worked in companies that as a recruiter, I was looked down upon if I ever mentioned, hey, let's pull in an agency on this, or if that even came up because of that, I was obviously a failure, which is not the case. I loved when I went to Merchant E. It took a minute, but when I walked in the door, they had laid off their entire HR and entire recruiting department. So I came in with a new CHRO. And it was the Wild West. It was every agency, a lot of IT agencies were coming in, meeting with our managers, sending resumes, just overwhelming. Those were the only candidates that they had were coming in from agencies and they were doing a lot of hiring. So the very first thing to do is just control the chaos, bring everything into TA, not to be the police, but to make sure that we knew what was happening so that we could better partner with whoever we needed to partner with. So immediately it wasn't like no agencies were taking it on, but it was, I was building trust because I was brand new there. They were agencies, some of them were giving them great hires. So that's where we started. Who are the agencies that are actually partnering with you instead of just throwing you every random candidate? Who are the agencies that understand your business? And then who are we hiring and are they staying? So really looking at the effectiveness of our agency use. So that was our initial couple of months was just contain the chaos just a bit. There were some that I fired very purposefully and I won't name names, but I will never work with them again. And then 3 or 4 that I still am friends with because we grew to have such a partnership and understand what our company is, what the candidates are that work for us as a company. And then as we could, we were able to build out our internal TA team. And again, hiring people who had that agency mindset of, we know that we need to go source, we know how to do that so that we could have an internal sourcing and recruiting team, not just a people processing team, which is always the goal.
Yeah, it's great. I love thinking about recruiting becoming talent partner, talent advisor, because we have a data set that aligns with a candidate and employee's motivations from earlier in the life cycle and the journey than the HR counterparts. A simple test for this is go ask your top performing software engineer to tell you about their recruiter, then ask them to tell you about their HR business partner. I can guarantee you they will have more information and they will light up talking to you about their recruiter than their HRBP. It's just a different business function that unfortunately, HR and recruiting have just been put in this one part of the org chart. And I believe recruiting needs to make a shift and have more chief talent officers that bring some of those insights and the data points that the talent acquisition team has from prior to the moment of conversion so that we can have a holistic view around engagement, motivation, impact, all of the things that we are typically scapegoated for when a new hire doesn't work out. So I think just like the system and the org chart is designed incorrectly.
Yeah, I love that. I've always partnered well with my HR business partners and chief HR officers. I like being a part of knowing what's happening in the company. I do my job better if I know people that I'm bringing in, what are they going to be judged against when it's time for their performance review? What are their KPIs? So then I know, okay, that's what I need to look for, those type of people. Those are the questions I need to be asking here a year earlier, sorry. But yeah, I love being able to be a part of that. I think that's a brilliant idea.
When I think about walking into a company as like a new recruiter, when I'm an external partner or one of those fractional or RPO placements and hiring is a mess, what is one of the first signals you look for to diagnose the real problem, whether it's process, people, planning, technology?
It's always all of the above, typically. I think that the people want to do a good job. That is my innate belief in humanity. I've been proven wrong a couple of times on that, but most people want to do a good job. Hiring managers want to hire great people. They want to hire the right person for their business. But I typically like to start with the process because it's consistency and structure and consistency and structure. If you're missing that, no one can do a good job if they don't have that. So again, sometimes it's a mess. Not always is it a mess. It's just finding those spaces, like you said, like looking at, I start with process and then where can I remove the bottlenecks in the process and what tools can I give to my team or give to the hiring team, tools and training to make it easier. It doesn't have to be so hard. Like it is, like you said, an art and a science, but it's not rocket science. Like it is just being able to say, this is our process. Let's work through that. Now, I can be scattered at times, so people have to remind me of my own process, but I do like to have a good one in place. But yeah, I think people want to do a good job. I think, again, hiring managers just want the training. And it's all about just starting to ask those curiosity questions like, do you know where your behavioral interview guides are stored? No. What is that? I've never even seen one. And the recruiters are like, yeah, we have them on the internet. Is typically, I've had that conversation more than I want to admit. And so, have you told anyone about it? So it's really just making sure that communication's up and that you're keeping really consistent and structured in what you're doing. And then maybe get out of it. I don't know. Maybe it's not as hot of a mess as we think.
Yeah, I love that. And there's also no recruiting jail or recruiting emergency room. And there's no rule that says a hiring manager can't run their own process. I think a lot of the times we come in or recruiters come in and think recruiting is going to run everything. Like you can start by asking a hiring manager, like if it's a hot mess, you've got a lot on your plate, ask the hiring manager, hey, do you want to run this process independently or how do you envision our partnership looking? And by offering that up, it gets them to lean in a little bit because sometimes they come to you with, hey, I've got my process outlined. Here's my Google Drive with questions. And they sometimes ask more for input or feedback than when we come in hot and just say, hey, here's your interview questions. Here's your interview plan. I just moved a bunch of stuff around in the ATS. Here's your new login, yada, yada. And here's a Slack channel. So, whoa, that can be a little bit much for hiring managers because the reality is like some hiring managers can run a great process and that helps recruiters.
I've seen a lot. Yeah. The second I see me or my team becoming the bottleneck, that's when we've got to have some more conversations on maybe this isn't the right way. Maybe we're not doing it the right way. Maybe we need to learn from some other people.
Totally. And when I think about recruiting, it's not a one size fits all process. You've hired across tech, product, risk, finance, sales, ops, G&A, customer success, all of that. What do you think the biggest mistake is when recruiters try and use a one size fits all hiring process for every function?
Yeah. The consistency doesn't have to be identical. And I think that's where you want to be consistent with everyone needs to be on the same page with the interview plan. Everyone needs to be on the same page with what questions we are asking. But none of that needs to be the same. And typically, obviously, it shouldn't be with our technical questions. It shouldn't be for our competency questions. Hopefully, you have competency questions. And I think speed is so different for every single one of those roles. Hand-holding is so different. And that might not be the right word, but the level of touch that you need with candidates is so different from an executive level, VP level candidate to a customer service rep who, if they don't hear from you in 2 days, they're gone. And they're taking another job. So I think you got to read the room. more than anything to be able to understand the what your candidate wants. It's really looking at asking. I'm not just going to, like you were saying, we don't just throw out processes. This is what we say in TA, go do this and expect it to work. Same with candidates. You can't just do everything the same. And then remembering that recruiting or onboard or hiring someone doesn't end at the recruiting process, but you've got to stay really close with that onboarding. And there's a different level of touch that's needed there also. And it's pretty important that you lay all that out for everybody.
100%. And I see a lot of comments on LinkedIn. I know you're on LinkedIn every day, where we see a lot of like incorrect reality. So one of the common things on LinkedIn that I keep seeing is people are so mad at interview rounds.
You're right.
And it's, if you go online, you would think this is one of the biggest issues in hiring and like getting a job. And it's, I honestly, the candidates I work with, like they don't care if it's 4 rounds or 6 rounds. That's just not a thing. And I actually see a lot of candidates ask for more time with teams because they're trying to de-risk the next job decision they make. What are you seeing around interview rounds?
I don't think people care how many as much as they care to be kept in the loop and to know what it is. Because it's that just one more person wanted to meet with you, or we wanted you to come back one more time. And it's, I thought we were done. I thought we were done. You said last time this was it. So yeah, I don't think, although yeah, obviously there are some that are extreme and you're like, really, does it take 12 people to make a decision on a customer service rep? Does the CEO have to meet every sales rep? No, that's an internal problem that you guys need to work on your decision making. But yeah, I don't think that candidates care as much about how many. They just want to be kept in the loop. They want to know. Some are, obviously, a lot of people are not working right now. Don't want to dismiss that, but plenty of people are still working. And it's important that they're able to manage their life, or manage their work, and not get fired while they're trying to look for another job, because you can't make a decision. And it comes down to that decision making in the process.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because this is like probably the most boomer thing about me. I hold people to a really high standard of integrity and ethics. And like one of the beauties of one-way interviewing, which we saw 7-8 years ago when those tools came onto market, like one-way video interviewing for customer success or sales reps, IC level roles that were leveraging those tools. And now AI screening it actually helps the candidate. The candidate then doesn't have to take a day off of work, PTO, lie to their boss, or if they're working remotely from home, they don't have to be muddled with wage theft by taking their interview during the working hours where they should be working remotely. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of pushback on AI interviewers, and we could talk about bias separately and automated decision systems separately. But I think a lot of the candidate sentiment that is online just doesn't reflect the perspective of the people who are getting hired. What are your thoughts on what you're seeing around candidate sentiment?
Interesting.
When you think about that process and you talk about competencies, I go back to my first ChatGPT project 3 years ago, and it was the question bank, the yes, no, strong yes type of responses that I would look for, all of the levels of the role within the organization that I was hiring for. And it was like this magnum opus, this giant opus of recruiting interview questions, from competencies, behavioral-based interview questions, hypotheticals. That was a fun project to work on. How do you think about the role of interviews evolving from behavioral and hypothetical questions to skills-based hiring assessments? I'm seeing psychometrics come back into trend. What about you?
Interesting. Yeah, I still have somewhere in my now Google Docs a huge library of competency questions. And some of them I'm like, God, ask someone this question. This is horrible. Because I think I feel like I've always hired from a skills-based standpoint, and then potentially added like behavioral at the end. I actually worked for a company where we did RPO work for the Home Depot, and there were people who their only job was behavioral interview questions all day long. And it was all very, I'm like, I would really like to know the data on how those people did in the actual job once they got there. And I'm not dismissing behavioral questions. I think they're very important. I think it makes us think. It helps us we get our star examples out. But I think skills-based hiring is a much better way. I honestly, like the next interview that I go on, I'm like, could you just let me work for a couple of hours and let's see if we get along together? And if my ideas match your ideas and if I could actually do this job for you? Because I just feel I like being in the job. And I think that's how it shows up. So like, I'm pontificating and I may not have an answer into this, but like literally how do we figure out, can we actually work together? Do you have the capabilities to do this job without asking silly, ridiculous competency questions?
And that's the thing about skills-based hiring. In my mind, like companies don't want to pay vendors to administer the skills assessments, and candidates don't want to prove they have the skills. But you go online and people are like, oh, skills-based hiring, it's going to take over. Prove it.
Yeah.
When I think about, when I think about high volume hiring, you've stood up some of these types of teams. What does a great candidate experience look like at scale when you're doing high volume hiring?
Yeah. And I'll go back to Merchant E. I like high volume hiring because there's usually a deadline at the end of it. We're hiring on purpose because we have a big project coming in. At Merchant E, we were moving a call center. We had a date where we needed this call center to be live. And so then you work backwards. You're like, if we need 12 people in their seat on March 1st, obviously you've got the interviews, you've got the onboarding, you can work backwards. And so everyone involved in the process has a deadline. And I feel like it puts everyone on their best behavior. And you're able to say, obviously, candidate experience, we're not going to sacrifice quality of the person that we're hiring just because we need them in the seat on day one. We're not going to sacrifice being able to reach out to people, making sure everyone has an answer. Are they getting hired or not? Like you have to keep that level. So you're not sacrificing anything. But I think it also, in order to save time, you've got to build in processes such as being crystal clear, more than obvious in your job advertisement, in your pre-screen. These are the hours. This is the location. This is the pay. Please put that in there if you can. So I think it puts us in a space where we do everything we know how to do at earth level at the nth degree, where sometimes if you don't have this high volume, this deadline, me too, like I'm guilty of it. You get a little laissez-faire. Oh, it'd be nice if we had this person in place by April. But if we can't find anyone, like that just immediately puts everyone with like, I was going to swear, I'm not going to swear, like halfway doing their job. And so I like high volume because of that. And it's like, how can I replicate that in regular everyday hiring? And that's the important part, making sure that we're keeping in touch with every candidate, but also that we're putting enough friction, if you will, at the top so that the people that we're interviewing, that we're bringing in, they've got an 80, 90% higher rate of being very successful in this role. And it's almost a no-brainer once they come in for their interview or do their final.
Yeah, that's a good call out. I think when it comes to injecting friction back into the process, that's what we're seeing. Zapier is a good example of a company that has an amazing employer brand, high volume of applications, and they inject a ton of friction in the top of their application process. Have probably for a lot of frontline sales and service roles, I've seen 2 or 3, sometimes 4 like competency behavioral based interview questions that are open text that they are then analyzing on the backside. I think that is beneficial because we asked vendors to make it easier for candidates to apply. That's on us as recruiters. Years back, it was like, hey, we can't get applicants into our funnel for these recs. So vendors went out and built mobile optimized applicant tracking system. And so the same goes for AI. Like we're 3 years into AI and now we're seeing this massive problem where operational expense is increasing. We're seeing recruiters overwhelmed. Instead of 200 recs or instead of 200 applications in a rec, they're seeing 2,000. Honestly, we should have seen around this corner. We should have gotten here sooner, but it's the old school tactic of inject more friction to the top of the funnel. And then hopefully you're getting better signal through that noise, whether it is an easy apply from a person or if it is a fraudulent or AI applicant or AI spam tool to blast out resumes. So I think there's a lot of ways we can inject friction into the process in a positive way. How do you see companies injecting friction into hiring in 2026?
I think I love that example of Zapier. They're definitely a company to watch on what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I will go take a look at that in just a little bit when we get off the phone. I definitely think I use the word clarity because somehow along the way, we decided it should all be a mystery on how do recruiters pick who they want to interview and what's it look like to be a great candidate for this job and this job? Why do we have to keep that a secret? There's certainly there's some things that you're never going to be able to satisfy everyone in what you tell about the job or how you write about the job. But when we're asking or saying out loud, this is very simple. Don't say remote if you actually need someone to come into the office one day in Atlanta. How many times do we see that? And that's certainly a big rant that we hear. So many candidates are like, are you kidding me? I just spent 20 minutes on your application and then you tell me it's got to be in-house. But I think adding that friction to the top, making sure that you're very clear so that people can opt out. But then more importantly, you're getting the right people to opt in. And that just increases everybody's odds of success. It's not just the people who interview well, but it's the right people coming to you, the people who need to work at your job. You've been in this as long as I have, knowing that I have full faith that the right job finds the right person. And I know that sounds hokey and it's the art and the psychology of my psychology degree come into play, but why not make it a little bit easier to make that matchmaking happen at the beginning? So then if you're getting to the end and you have whatever, maybe you have 5 final round candidates and none of them make it. What if you've missed everything, but not just the recruiter, the hiring managers who maybe didn't give you the right profile, what they're actually looking for. So I think spending time with your hiring managers, making sure you know exactly what works, what doesn't work, what are your top performers doing or not doing, obviously, and then talking about that in your job, in your pre-screen so that you're getting more people, the right people in the door.
Yeah, I agree. Now, when you think about employer brand and recruitment marketing, you've done a lot of this. Like, what do you think changes public perception of a top employer?
Yeah. And again, Merchant E was there was so much walking in the door. It was the literal whole cliche of flying the plane, trying to find an old manual maybe that existed and then rewriting the manual at the same time. But they had done some pretty big rifts a couple of years before. They had changed CEOs 3 or 4 times in a year or two. So we walked into a bad reputation in the employer space, in the candidate space. I had a recruiting coordinator who was phenomenal at this. He actually has a great social media brand outside. So I was like, you're my guy. So we did just grassroots and we had a really good story to tell just from the get-go. We had new leadership coming in, transforming the organization, hearing about what we were doing with our employees. So we knew that we had a good story. So we started telling it. One, we were doing a lot of sourcing. We almost had I don't want to say a script, but we all were telling the same story. And that's maybe marketing 101 to bigger companies. But for us, this was, hey, let's make sure we're telling the same story of what we're doing, why we're growing, what we want to do here in Atlanta. And then we put that into our employee referral. We redid our employee referral program and not like trying to force people to give referrals, but making sure they knew that story too. So they're telling people. Then we built it into our social media. We started owning our Glassdoor page. We were owning our Indeed page. So that story was getting out and we never forcefully ask our employees to go write reviews because that's going to come back and bite you in the you know what. But we did, if someone referred someone, we would take that opportunity to say, would you mind? So then you got more of an authentic, this person actually does love the company and if they could go do that for us. But so that within a month, we went from like a CEO or whatever, the rating from a 1 to a 4.5. Like it just happened immediately. And that told the story. So then once we were able to then get into LinkedIn, build our life page, build our career page, start posting pictures of what we were doing. We were all in-house at the time or in office at the time. Then when it came time for marketing to start their actual rebrand, we had already done it organically and on a grassroots online. I hope it made it easier for them. So then they put the professional spin on it, if you will, with us partnering with them really closely.
It's great.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
How are you thinking about RecOps and implementing new tools and systems into some of the companies that you're working with fractionally?
Yeah. I use AI a lot. I haven't worked a ton. I've worked with some companies who aren't using AI as much as they should in their recruiting systems. I'm like eager to, because I try to jump on webinars when I can, try to listen to, of course, what you're talking about, so that I understand as many of the tools that are out there. It's a little overwhelming. So I'm frankly pretty eager to jump into a company that's using AI really well, especially for, you're talking about doing some of the pre-screening, doing some of the interviewing. Like, as a candidate, I would love that. I would love to be able to, it's when you get on the phone with your pharmacy and you're able to click, okay, my prescription's coming tomorrow, and I didn't have to talk to anyone, explain anything. Like, I love that. So I think it's going to be, obviously it's game changing already. It's going to be the way that we're all going to be successful, is being able to understand what is the tool, how's it going to change my life, and just keeping up with all of it. You help me through that process, please, my friend.
It's a lot. It's fun. I take a lot of demos. I do a lot of recommendations. And number one question I get asked in my DMs is, what tools do you recommend? So yeah, I'm happy to lend some thoughts, lend some analysis. There are some great folks out there doing similar work. But Brooke, you're doing amazing things. I appreciate your friendship. I'm excited to see your business grow. How can people stay in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, of course. We talked about that. So I'm on LinkedIn. My business is Restoration Talent Solutions. So that's my website, restorationtalentsolutions.com. I keep pretending I'm going to build an Instagram page, and I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to stick to LinkedIn. I love to talk to candidates who need help in the job seeker market. I love to talk to, I think, a small to mid growing company. You've got a great process in place, but you want to take it to the next level. That's where I thrive. That's where I love to diagnose those problems and get in and fix them really quickly, put out the fires along with your HR and TA team.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh my
Have
God,
a blast.
thank you. You're a delight. I can't wait to meet you in person again. See you in Atlanta.
Absolutely. I can't wait. Have a blast at Evolve. Shout out to Anna again. And we'll see you on the show and hopefully in real life very soon.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. Have a good week.